Hey everybody, welcome to today's guest speaker. I'm so excited to have Dr. Michelle Markham here with us today. We are covering the hot topic of essential oil safety. And I'm just excited for you guys to all be here because there's going to be some major myth busting and some awesome education with Dr. Michelle. And get ready to have your socks blown off a little bit. So grab a piece of paper and grab a pen. Shut down Facebook, shut down your phone. You're going to want to pay attention because she has lots of awesome information to share. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Tricia Sheehan. I'm a certified essential oil coach and a holistic health coach, and I run the group Functional Essential Oil Education, which is open to anybody who's interested in learning more about essential oils. And I bring in a lot of guest speakers on various topics. So if you want to connect more in with me in that group, you can just look for it on Facebook, Functional Essential Oil Education. And we'll make sure by the end you also know how to connect more with Dr. Michelle as well. So Dr. Michelle, thank you so much for being here. Really, really appreciate it. Can you tell everybody a bit more about your background, your training, and how you got into oils?
Oh, well, there's a question I haven't addressed in a little while. So I started out actually when I was right out of high school, and I thought I wanted to be a real doctor. And I say that kind of tongue in cheek, because naturopaths sometimes we get laughed at, chiropractors get laughed at, occasionally by other people. So I went to school actually for 5 years, and the end of my 5 years, I think somebody in the family made the comment, "When are you going to graduate?" And I was very offended. And it kind of sat with me for a while, and I was like, well, why am I so offended? That's a good question. When am I going to graduate? And the answer was, well, I don't know, still, because I wasn't kind of straggling around with my last classes. Well, I didn't want to go to medical school. I didn't believe in it. And I knew that. I also didn't want to dissect bodies. That was another thing that was stopping me because I was kind of grossed out by that. So I had no idea that naturopathic medicine existed. At that point in my life, even though I had been exposed to chiropractors since I was a kid and I really loved chiropractic, number one, I didn't even know they did anything with nutrition. I didn't even know anything about that because the one I went to did not. But I didn't even know, I never even considered that to be an option. So I went on several more years and a lot of stuff happened. And then I found naturopathic medicine and I was like totally blown away. So the first class I had to take to become a naturopath was medical massage, and then it went on to manual therapy. So we had to learn how to touch the body first, just partially, I think, because nobody touches the body anymore in allopathic medicine. They do not lay hands on you. I mean, really, doctors don't even take your blood pressure or listen to your heart anymore. The nurse does that.
Mm-hmm.
So, and now it's all done by machines. They stick the cuff on you, the electric cuff, and they don't even know. A lot of people don't know how to do it manually. So anyway, we got to learn how to touch people first. Essential oils were not taught to me in school at all. And so even before going to school to be an alternative, holistic, whatever you want to call it, practitioner, I actually got interested in oils just because I liked smells. I wanted to make some pretty bath salts and homemade soaps with my girlfriends and stuff like that. And unfortunately, or however you want to think about it, we actually went to the health food store and we just bought the cheap stuff. We didn't know any better. We bought the stuff that said for fragrance only. Some of it was pretty gross. We used it anyway, whatever, we had fun. And then I had started wanting to employ it into my clinic at some point. I don't know where that kind of came into my view, but it was after I wasn't quite a naturopath yet, but I was in school for it. And somebody, I guess maybe I was reading about it like on a blog or something about, how oils can help with muscle tension and relaxing people and things like that. So I wanted to start to see like, how would it help with migraine headaches? How would it help my clients in my clinic? And we started kind of playing around with it, and I was never really able to achieve consistent results. And then a lot of people would say that, oh, that made me feel really sick or whatever. And so through using them and playing around with different brands over time, I ended up finding, what worked. And now I just feel it was all really self-study. Honestly, I was able to basically apply essential oils. So like, Roman chamomile, it's an herb, right? We use it in Ayurveda, Chinese medicine. And that's what I practice is those two Eastern modalities or schools of thought or whatever, primarily. So just knowing, okay, what does the herb do? what does the oil do? Of course, it's a little bit different in the constituents that's in there, because the essential oil is just going to be the volatile aromatic compound, not, the vitamins, not the plant material, not, all that. No proteins, no enzymes, whatever. So that's going to kind of change it a little bit, but really overall, it's going to do a lot of the same things to the body. So I basically didn't train specifically on essential oils. I used my background in organic chemistry, which obviously essential oils are all based in that, which I hated that when I was in college. Hated organic chemistry. I love it now because I have like a place to put it, right? So it's beautiful. Before it was just like the stupid little, molecule charts, like, yay, a benzene ring. That's so boring. So anyway, I guess it was just kind of through stumbling around in the dark, so to speak, that just by continuing to look and seek and find, more things came into my view. And when I had questions, I would look at all the variables and, the yes and the no, all the stuff that we see on the internet opposing each other. And I would ask a million questions about, and then, extrapolate that information onto something else and say, like, all right, so if this is true, then what does that make that? And so that's how I always debunk things, is basically by making these really stark comparisons. And people will often tell me, like, wow, I've never thought about it that way. Now that makes so much sense. So it's like, to me, it's common sense and inquiry, and being open to what is the result. Even if I have my opinion, which I'm very opinionated, I still leave myself open to, okay, I could be wrong. What's gonna come out of this? And so I think really anybody can do that, because a lot of people look to me and say, well, you're a naturopath, you're a professional. I can't think on that level. This had nothing to do with, my naturopathic education, really. It was just because we were taught in school that essential oils were woo-woo, basically. We were taught that energy work was woo-woo. We were taught that Chinese medicine was woo-woo. I was very, very trained in what, functional medicine, and which I don't even, me, I'm more into the energetic stuff now. So I think if everybody just follows their intuition, and asks lots of questions, and it's okay to be in confusion, because confusion means that the answer is coming. If we're at least in that dark hallway where we're kind of like, where's the light switch? Like, I don't know where I am. Then pretty soon we're going to feel around enough till we've exhausted all the where the light switch isn't. And then pretty soon we're going to find it. And then it's going to come on and we're going to like, oh my gosh, I know the answer now.
Yeah.
It has to happen eventually if you keep looking.
Yeah. Awesome. And for those, so some of the people who are joining us are, brand new, just trying to learn some basics, and some people are at a more advanced stage. So I know we're going to cover stuff that's helpful to everybody. Maybe we'll just, can we dive into like the big elephant in the oily room, internal use? So clearly you have oils in your water right now. And there seems to be two camps. There's people who say you should never do that, and there's the camp people who say there can be benefit from doing that. What's your thought about internal use?
I feel like if you feel comfortable with it, do it. If you don't feel comfortable, don't do it. I'm not ever going to tell any of my patients you must ingest essential oils, because there's always topical usage. We can use aromatic. And there's other applications too, which would also be internal, like, rectally, vaginally, other things like that. I don't think that those methods are necessarily necessary. I mean, obviously, if we smell an oil from a diffuser, apply it to our skin, ingest it. However, it's going to get into every single cell of our body within 20 minutes. It's going to circulate our bloodstream just by smelling it. It gets into our bloodstream, it's getting into our body. So if you think about, this is something I've actually never said before. It just came to me. So if we do that, if I just smelled it, it's going to be actually in the cells of my stomach, in 20 minutes. I don't have to actually drink it. However, there is something to be said for intention, because people will often ask where to put it or should I drink it. So if I drink this oil in my glass, there's probably like a drop or two of spearmint. I really didn't pay attention. I just real quick in my water. Of course, it's going to sit on the top of my water. It's not going to be all nice and dispersed throughout, because there's no emulsifier in there, and oil and water don't mix. So When I drink it, it's going to be almost like a neat application because there is no carrier oil in that water. I didn't put any in there. I just didn't feel like it. Sometimes I do drink carrier oil because sometimes I drink castor oil. And sometimes I'll use essential fatty acids, for other health benefits, and I'll put oils with them. And that's so that those essential oils can emulsify those fats because I don't have the best functioning gallbladder right now. And so my bile doesn't flow the way it should. It's something I've been working on for a little while and gotten more serious about. So a lot of times we'll use limonene rich essential oils internally for that reason. Doctors actually medical doctors prescribe limonene for the heart. It's probably synthetic, right? And not the kind that we'd want because that's made out of petrochemicals, and who wants to drink plastic? Even if it looks like, that molecule for limonene, it's still synthetic. I wouldn't want that. But anyway, so using that internally is going to be able to, when it gets in my small intestine, is going to spread all that fatty oil, whether I just had some coconut oil or an avocado or whatever I had, spread it all over my small intestine. So then the lipase from my pancreas can get down there and break it up. Otherwise, without the bile and without the supplemental emulsifier, I'm probably not going to be able to digest that fat so well. And then I'm not going to get the benefits. My liver's not going to get help from the healthy fats, my nervous system, my muscles, my brain, everything that needs those healthy fats. And so we'll see people get really super fat deficient, vitamin D deficient, all the deficiencies we see in lipids in the human body. And it's because so many people have problems with their gallbladder. It's just like such a pervasive problem. And I think that's really where I started with internal usage, because I use a practitioner only nutraceutical company called Premier Research Labs. And probably a lot of people know Standard Process. Well, it's just another company that's like Standard Process. You have to be a practitioner to be able to use it. And then you work with your patients and decide what they need and help them to get the right amount and whatever. Well, Dr. Marshall, who is the founder of PRL, would always really start us with working with people's digestion. And as a functional medicine person, we really look at digestion first, because if we don't digest our food, we're going to be creating all this yucky debris that is going to overrun the body. So Dr. Marshall's big thing was two things you can use: limonene and lecithin. So they sell straight up limonene. So they take, so, like, is it grapefruit oil is 95 to 90% limonene.
Mm-hmm.
That's like the highest limonene containing essential oil. The other citrus oils are really high up there. Like orange oil might be like, I think 90 to 95%. And then you kind of go down, you've got lime is like, I think less, and then lemon falls somewhere in between. So, really they're high, but if you want to get the highest, it's grapefruit. So, they basically took grapefruit oil and then they took the limonene away from it. So it's just straight up limonene. So there's a chemical process that's going on in there. Personally, I just like to use the whole oil rather than taking out the components, less processing, right? It's more friendly to whole stuff is like a lot happier to the body than like fractions. Right. So, anyway, that I guess was my foot into internal usage. And I remember back then there were so many people who said, well, that's not safe. That'll tear up your stomach. It's going to break down the mucous membranes in your stomach. Oh my gosh, people, think about this. Like, your stomach is a giant mucous membrane, but so are your lungs. So is the inside of your nasal cavity. So if you can diffuse oils and rub them on your hands and breathe them in, and you don't have like a major breakdown in your mucous membranes there, why are you going to have it in your stomach? Your stomach has to deal with this massively, well, it should. Most of us don't have it because we're dealing with situations with our food industry and everything, but we should have this like amazingly strong stomach acid, like a really low number. So like 3.5 to 4, maybe even a little lower than that. Most of us don't have that. But if our stomach was really strong where it should be to keep us healthy, our stomach acid's basically wearing and tearing down that mucous membrane all the time. So our body is supposed to be genetically used to, I have to keep on repairing that mucous membrane, building it up, building it up, building it up. It's like the same with the mucosal lining of our intestines and the insides of our blood vessels and everything else. So, I mean, ingesting a drop or two of essential oils or more, because a lot of times I do a lot more than that, just depends on what's going on with me. Less is more, of course. You can use a carrier oil. That's going to help it not to go in to the tissue as fast. It's going to slow it down. If there's burning or something like that in your stomach when you ingest, that's probably a significant kind of like tap on the shoulder. Like there's another issue. You probably have low stomach acid. You probably have maybe some pathogens like Heliobacter pylori. Something else is going on. So it's not necessarily a normal thing to ingest oils and get a burning sensation. However, I will say with hot oils, hot oils are hot, right?
Right.
I really, if I drink some ginger or oregano or something like that, I'm going to feel that a whole lot more than chamomile or vetiver or something like that. That's more of a calming oil. So, you just have to use, okay, we all can get in touch with our bodies if you're not already. I haven't always been this way. And then we try something, see how it works. Start out really small. If you're unsure about ingesting, maybe you just want to put it over you on the outside, over your stomach on the outside, see how that feels. If it feels okay, maybe try a really small amount, and maybe put it in a capsule with a carrier oil or something like that, or put it in a glass of water with a little bit of castor oil or coconut oil or whatever. And then, build up on it. And if that works, try a little bit more. It's just I am not going to go try to run a marathon today. I know running hurts my body really bad and it just doesn't agree with me. And if I try to do that, if I try to run 5 miles or walk 5 miles and force myself to do it, I'm going to hurt so bad tomorrow. But if I really wanted to train to do a marathon, I'm going to start small, see how that feels, see how I feel the next day. Am I going to do it 2 days in a row? Do I need a massage? Do I need a chiropractic adjustment? Do I need a stretch? What do I need to do different if I really want to achieve this goal? Because every one of us are so extremely different.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you know that you don't do well ingesting peppermint oil and it burns, don't do it.
Right.
Like those cartoons that say, doctor, whenever I do this, it hurts. And he's like, don't do that anymore. It's that obvious.
Yeah. So what's your perspective on why it tends to be the aromatherapist community, they have a certain type of training and they tend to say no internal use? Thoughts on that?
Well, I think, okay, so this really wasn't such a big deal back in the 70s when that really became, kind of getting its popularity or whatever. Energetically and intuitively, I feel like it's a control thing because coming from a massage therapy background, there is a lot of, oh my gosh, I can't like you because you might take my clients. And you really almost have to keep people depending on you and keeping them small to get them keep coming back. So to teach your massage client or your aromatherapy client, I think a lot of people are growing out of this, but I think we were in that space in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And I think we're growing through I don't need to be afraid of you. We have abundance. There's enough sick people who want to get well for every practitioner to be helpful to. And if we empower people, they're going to be so excited. They're going to probably tell their friends and family, and then they're going to help them. And then some of them might want to come to you and get more help. So, there's just a never ending supply of sick people. So, really our goal shouldn't be, I don't want to put that, on people, but my goal is not to keep people dependent on me. I have people work with me for 6 months, and my main goal in that time is to teach them to become empowered, to become in tune with their body, and to understand, the doshas and Ayurveda, understand some Chinese medicine, at least to a degree that they can go, oh, I'm feeling hot. What does that mean? Okay. What do I do? Oh, I do the opposite to calm that down. So I just, I want to really teach people so that they don't need to come to me every single time they have a cold or flu, or their kid gets sick, or their husband is not feeling well. So they can start to make informed choices for themselves. I really think it should be doctor as teacher. That's how we were taught. That's how allopathic medicine started out too, but it's become this moneymaker. And, that's partially due to the pharmaceutical companies and, all that stuff. And I want to get real political, but, we don't need to buy into that if we don't want to. I don't really address it anymore. My husband works for Pfizer. So it's been interesting in our house in times, but, he sees the value in this. And, empowering people to stay healthy. He's had his gallbladder removed. He was told you're going to have to, take insulin because was the drug, the pill, it starts with an M, the pill that they use for your blood pressure or your blood sugar, excuse me. I can't think of what it's called right now. Micro something, I think. Anyway, and I just said, like, if you want to do that, you can do it. It's not going to answer your problem. And I told you several years back when you got your gallbladder, we would see, blood sugar problems and pancreatic problems eventually, because it's really your liver that's got the issue. It wasn't your gallbladder's fault. So deal with that. And so he's actually, learned to deal with that. So anybody in the allopathic community, doctors, whatever, eventually they will come around. And, I think we'll see this stuff go away. But I think there's the pressure from the medical industry on the natural practitioners, getting back to that. So way back in the day in Michigan, there was 2 schools of chiropractic. One school of chiropractic was like spinal adjustments only. No, let's not be talking about, making recommendations for what to eat or what supplements to take. Let's not get into any crazy energy work. Let's not be doing anything outside of the spine. That's all we should be doing. That's it. That wasn't what the original chiropractic started out with, but that fraction, kind of came out. So that those 2 communities were arguing. And so the state of Michigan said, you know what, if you guys don't quit bitching and moaning, excuse my language, coming into court trying to sue each other and say, hey, he's taking my patients because he's giving them supplements. That's not right. You shouldn't be qualified to do that. We're just going to take it all away, and all you're going to get to do is the spine. So for like 30 years, I think it was almost like 1969 when they did that. For 30 years, they were not allowed to adjust extremities, to do like a ton of stuff they were taught in school. And when I found that out, I was like, wow, that's amazing. So imagine like all of the kind of like inbred like jealousies and stuff that were going on in that profession. The same with any other complementary or alternative or whatever we want to call it profession. I just call it like natural, just like the way we really should treat our bodies. But, there's so much of that going on. People get into that lack mentality, and then they want to make sure, okay, we got to make this, you can't do this yourself. You need me. And good God, you could kill somebody. You could kill your baby. They could stop breathing. You're going to ruin your stomach and blah, blah, blah. The other thing is also getting sued. And so by them doing this in this day and age, in the, 2018, if they say that, oh, this isn't anything that could possibly happen, we're going to say it's not safe. So even if it's like a 1 in a gazillionth chance, we're going to say that so that we never get sued.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to go on the other way and say, okay, so this is probably going to be your outcome. Be aware of this, this, and this. And if these things happen, then either stop or come ask me the question to find, if you want to know why this is happening, to fix that problem. And then we send you back on your way. So I've had people, people don't ever want to talk about the rashes people get when they use essential oils. And they call it allergies and all this stuff. And it's not an allergy. People will get, burns or whatever they want to call them. And I don't even really know. I just say it's the body's reaction. And it could be from lavender oil, which we would never expect to do that. I've seen that so many times, but we develop a sensitivity, right? So it's interesting because these sensitivities will be called allergies. They'll be called chemical burns, they'll be called all these different things. And my belief, and from what I've seen on how to reverse it, is that the stuff actually can be, if we tap into why is this happening? Because we know that lavender is oil communication. And if we have a problem where there's lack of communication, especially if it's up here, like over the heart or the throat, where these rashes are occurring, then we can start asking questions about that. What's going on? Who do you feel you can't communicate with? And most of the time, people will say, my husband doesn't listen to me, or I feel like he can't speak my truth. And so then we look, I'll just use the emotions book because I'm writing a book, but it's not done yet. So I'm like, let's look in the emotions book and look at what else has to do with that. And so then we'll find another oil or something else, and then we'll have them do work on that emotional stuff there, because I believe, like Louise Hay, every single thing that comes out in a physical level is underlying in some stuck emotions in our body. So was that lavender just bringing out those emotions from the body, those toxic emotions, the toxicities that was held in the tissue, held in the skin? And is that the redness that we're seeing coming out? And I believe that 100%. So yes, don't keep using lavender. Like, stop it, on the spot. If this is getting red, or if you're ingesting it and it's, you're feeling it burning your throat, your internal skin is kind of like your external skin. So it's like, if we do something internally and see that it's hurting, but we can't actually see what it looks like, we'll stop doing it. But then if you want to keep using it and it's upsetting you that you can't continue with it, it's probably just your body saying, hey, look into what's going on. So look into the energetic, the spiritual, the emotional components of what is the esophagus? What does that mean? What is the trachea? What does that have to do with? What meridian is it on? What chakra is it? And eventually you're going to find what it has to do with, and then you'll be able to resolve it. You'll be able to release that emotional trauma, and then it's gone. So I just deal with it on that level instead of getting into the really super physiological, chemical stuff, because most people are like, okay, you lost me 20 minutes ago, like, or 1 minute ago, like whatever you see their face just go like,
they just go, bottom line it for me.
Yeah. They're like, what should I do? That's just what I want you to tell me. Like, so is it safe? Yes, it's safe. But if you notice that your body's having a response, it's just like, if peanuts are safe, right? I mean, peanuts have mold, they're legumes. We could say a lot of things about peanuts. It just depends on how you feel about them, but I think they're fine. Peanuts don't agree with me. So if I eat peanut butter, I'm going to feel like crap. And so do I keep doing that to myself? No. But, I'm not going to fear peanuts or anything like that. Peanuts can kill people who have that problem. So they're going to want to stay away from it. But really the answer is not to avoid it. Yes, avoid it, because you don't want to die or you don't want to get sick. But the answer is like, that was just getting a message from something that you need to look at why this is happening. Because think about it. How many people are allergic to peanuts? How many people are fine with it? It's a very small amount of people. How many people have a reaction to lavender? Very small amount of people. So is it dangerous? No. And I always use that analogy about peanuts because we know peanuts can kill people. I don't think essential oils have ever killed people, even when people have drank like an entire huge bottle of it. I don't think there's ever been a death. I've never been able to come across conclusive information that proved there was. There's been correlations where people are doing crazy stuff, but it still wasn't directly like related to the essential oil. It was kind of like okay, well, the person died, but they actually died of like some other thing or something like that.
Yeah.
So if anybody can show me that data, I'd be interested to look into it, but I just never seen it.
Well, I even asked an aromatherapist, we were having this discussion. I said, can you send me some information about essential injuries? And she sent it to me, and it was like 10 people. I mean, it was nothing. So, I think I agree with you. The bottom line is be mindful. When you're using something, especially for therapeutic purposes, no matter what it is, be mindful about it and pay attention to your body, tap into your intuition. Doesn't matter if it's the sun or an essential oil or an herb or a food or a medication or a cream, whatever.
Yeah. I
think we need to get away from this quick fix. I have a problem. The doctor writes me a prescription. I take 2 seconds, drink down a pill, and I forget about it. Like, let's get away from that whole mindset. I think that's kind of the bottom line is like, there's things that are possible to go wrong with anything. It's not specific to essential oils. So just let's think about what we're doing. And there's resources out there to help us learn as we go. And
that's
it doesn't have to be scary.
That's a good point. And I just, about the sun especially, but I also was thinking, what you said about medication. Somebody said this the other day, and I think I did post like a snippet of this in my group. Somebody was asking me about turmeric oil and turmeric and, about the bleeding, and like they thought that they couldn't use turmeric for all these reasons. Somebody thought they couldn't use turmeric for an ulcer and actually posted that one in the group. But so turmeric as an herb is different, completely different than turmeric as an essential oil. It's partially the blood thinning and platelet aggregation activity has to do with an enzyme that would not be present in the essential oil. So I don't know how compliant we're supposed to be here, but I'm just going to say my experience was, and this isn't a recommendation for anyone, I was on Celebrex and Ultram for a long time. I was diagnosed with juvenile onset osteoarthritis when I was 15 years old. I probably had it for a few years before then. And put on lots of medication, which tore up my stomach and, messed up my liver and gallbladder and all this stuff. So by the time I was in my 20s, my late 20s, and I was going to my first naturopathic class, which was medical massage, you know, and I have these horrible hands that just can't even open and shut all the way in the morning without all my medication. And someone said, you should try turmeric. And I was like, yeah, right. Like an herb, a spice is going to help my inflammation. Like, you don't understand. I take the maximum amount of Celebrex that a person can even take. Like, and I sneak a few extra, you know, so like, there's no way that this would help me. It took me quite a while to get, you know, on it and be compliant and consistent with it, because it really upset my stomach, because it's a bile producer, and as gummed up as my liver and gallbladder was from all those years of medications, you know, it was letting out a lot of garbage. So, you know, think about that. We are so willing as Americans, I think, just in general, and I'm not saying everybody is, but just as a collective, people are so willing to go to their doctor, and their doctor will say, hey, take this drug. And, you know, if you had side effects, then we'll just give you something else to shut that down. And then pretty soon, like I was on 12 medications at one time, pretty much all through my 20s, because, well, then you have to be on an antidepressant because you ruined your gut. And now you have to be on an anti-anxiety. Now you got to be on a sleeping pill. Now you got to be on, you know, all these things to get rid of just like where they started me, which was just arthritis.
Right.
So there's not a lot of questioning about cause anal bleeding, may cause strokes, you know, how they talk really fast at the end of those, you know, those commercials, which I never see unless I'm getting my nails done. And then I watch them and I'm like, wow, it's like comedy hour for me while I'm getting my nails done. But people don't question that stuff as much. They just figure, well, the doctor, that's never going to happen to me. Those side effects won't happen to me. It's fine. And then when they do happen, we're just like, well, I have to have this for my seizures, or I have to have this for my migraines, or I have to have this for, you know, my whatever it is. And that's acceptable when it's a medication. But as soon as it comes to food as medicine, as soon as it comes to herbs, essential oils, all of a sudden it's like, well, I'm not going to drink celery juice because it tastes yucky, or that upsets my stomach, or, oh my gosh, I got a little rash from that. Okay, what did your prescription drug do? Did that not give you a rash? Did that not make you not sleep at night? Did that not give you massive anxiety? Like that, those are real side effects. Yeah. That it's actually damaging your body. When it happens through a food or an herb, it's probably more like, and I'm not trying to be hypocritical by saying this. I'm not trying to be like, well, our stuff is good, their stuff is bad. But it's definitely more like, hey, pay attention. What is this? I'm trying to talk to you, because our body doesn't have a vocal voice. It speaks to us in different ways. And so these things are something that we need to go into inquiry and start asking, what are you trying to say? For sure.
Yeah. Quick question from the chat. I heard recently from a respective alternative doc that they are now seeing damage to receptors due to long-term use of oils on the skin. Have you heard of this, and what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so this would be kind of probably what I was talking about with, you know, the rashes that can come about or whatever from using oils topically. So people will say that if you dilute, that then this is less likely to happen. I don't think there's any evidence that I've ever seen. And like, if you think about that from a, you know, sensible standpoint, carrier oil fixes the oil to the skin. It stops it from being absorbed as fast. And it stops it from flashing off as fast. So there's times that we want to use a carrier oil on the skin. If it's a hot oil and it's going to, you know, burn or whatever, yes. Well, sometimes, I don't want to say always, because like, man, if I had a wart, I'm going to want to need oregano. I'm just not going to want to screw around with that. I'm just going to go for it. Or cold sore, I put oregano neat on my cold sores, and it's great. It tingles, it stings, and I'm kind of like, woohoo! But, you know, I don't see any damage to my skin. So if you start to see, I think the problem is with what happens with people is at the first sign of something happening, a change, where you start to see some redness or a rash, that you don't go talk to somebody or use your own sense and stop. You keep going. And I've seen that with myself, not with essential oils, but I've seen it with myself with other things in the past, because that was before I learned to respect my body's messages. And I've seen it with a lot of my patients and essential oil customers that are not my patients, that come to me 3 months down the road where they've created this massive rash, and then they're itching on top of it. So they're just clawing their skin up. So they have this very raw skin, and they keep applying oils there, and they didn't say anything to anyone about it. And so then they finally came forward when it's just a big mess. And then they're like, oh, I think maybe lavender is causing this. I'm like, wow, it would have been great if you would have said something when you first got like a little bit of itchiness or a little bit of redness, because it just takes longer to heal. So our body is completely self-healing. I'm sure, Tricia, you agree with me on that. So we can heal anything. It doesn't matter whether it's so-called damaged receptors, which I don't buy it's damaged receptors. I think it's probably just, I mean, how do they know it's damaged receptors? Like what kind of methodology did they use to determine that the receptors were damaged there? I'd be curious to know that one. They're probably just seeing that now they have like a skin issue, or, you know, we're seeing something on the skin that's either itchy, rashy, red, raw, something like that. Even if that were the case, it's healable. You know, we've all seen those horrible pictures that circulated the internet, like, oh, I used all these essential oils and then I went out into the sun and then I went in a tanning bed for a half an hour and oh my God, look at this. And then 3 days later, my skin is like coming off in hunks on my neck and like that.
Or they don't mention that they were out in the sun with a citrus oil, which they're not supposed to be doing. They leave out that little part.
Yeah. And so that's not a recommendation that, you know, we would want to tell people to stay away from. However, I'm one of those people, I don't know why. I could probably lather up in citrus oils thus far, lime, bergamot, whatever. I can go out and lay out in the sun, mow the grass and be out there all day. And there's no difference in where I put it to where I didn't put it. So I don't know why that is. I mean, I've never talked to people about, do you use citrus oils and then go out in the sun? I tell people like, just be, you know, think about it. And if you're out in the sun, pay attention, which we should be doing that anyway, right? Like we shouldn't just be sitting out in the sun all day. Cause like how easy it is to forget about, not be mindful, forget about what we're doing, having a good time or working, and then realize like, oh my gosh, I think I'm getting burned. Cause then you start to feel it. Yeah. And then you don't go in right away or cover yourself. And then you finally do. And then you pay for it a couple hours later or the next day or whatever. Yeah. It's the same thing with using oils. Like if you're going to try to see, you know, if they, you know, bother you in the sun, then, you know, there was so many times before I knew that was an issue of photosensitivity that, I just had them on because I used to use bergamot like crazy just for, you know, over my heart for healing, you know, old childhood stuff. And I just go outside. And then somebody told me that and I was like, uh-oh. But people can, you know, you'll hear stories of people like in Hawaii or Barbados or on a cruise or something, and they're having a margarita and the lime juice gets on their skin and then they get photosensitivity issues. So, I mean, lime juice can do it. Yeah. So it's not to, we shouldn't vilify essential oils. It's just the citrus compounds and stuff. So
yeah. Can we talk real quick about internal use for kids? Yes, no. Is it, you know, by age, by weight? What are your thoughts about that?
Well, I think it's by child and by the personality of the child. So, you know, if you're talking about okay, so there's so much that goes into this. Number one, like a newborn baby, I wouldn't do that. I mean, how are you even going to get that inside them? When a kid is old enough to swallow a pill, then I think they're probably safe to do it. You know, taking into consideration, knowing like, okay, what kind of, you know, issue are we trying to address? Did the topical not work? Do we need to get in their stomach? If a child has like some kind of a horrible disease and internal usage is going to be the best way to do it, you're weighing like that. You know, it's just like what they do with drugs. They're going like, okay, do the benefits outweigh the risks? I don't think that there's anything wrong with it. Kids have, you know, a faster cell turnover. However, they're less, there are some things where they're more less developed, I guess is what I want to say, you know, in some of their processes in their body, especially babies. So, you know, I wouldn't personally find any reason to ever use internal use with a baby. You know, I wouldn't put like, you know, but let's say I had essential oils. I was breastfeeding and I had essential oils on my breast and the baby didn't have a problem with that smell, because I always tell people like, obviously you want to keep it light because they might not like the smell. But if you know, I've seen babies really love the smell of essential oils, really little ones. So if it was there was a residue on the breast, or if it was in the breast milk or something like that, I don't think there's any problems with that at all. Also, breast milk is self-cleaning. So like, I don't remember, like, I think for everybody, the metabolism is a little bit different, but you know, we know with alcohol, you know, you can have a glass of wine. You don't need to pump and dump. You just have to wait for your blood to clean out your breast milk. So, you know, if you can wait that long to pump, you could probably just feed again, as long as you're not like overly, saturated with lots of heavy milk. Because some people just have to pump to get rid of, to get it off of them because it's just too engorging.
Yeah. Question from the chat. Are there special considerations for oil use in a purge? Okay, so this is getting into some contraindications, which might be too complicated. But the question is, are there special considerations? Oh, where'd it go? For oil usage in a person with stage 3 kidney disease, would it only be internal ingestion that may not be the best thing to do? And obviously people with liver issues, it's a little different. So this can maybe get too complicated, but maybe some thoughts on contraindications.
I think everybody is very individual for one thing. If somebody had some major kidney issues that are like, going to wind up killing them potentially. I mean, and we're talking, or cancer, they have liver cancer, pancreatic cancer, whatever. And, we have a very grim prognosis or, whatever. I don't think that it makes the situation worse. I think, there's, I was just reading some studies the other day about turmeric oil, and I'm really not big into reading studies anymore. I kind of get a little irritated by it, just all the over scientificism of everything nowadays. It's like there has to be proof for everything. I mean, like I'm just more into like, I ask myself, is this going to be good for me to do, or is it not going to be good for me to do? And I can get the answers. I mean, if we can learn how to do that, if you don't know how to do that now, I mean, there's tons of people who teach it.
You mean muscle testing?
Yeah, we could do muscle testing too, but I was even saying like, even on just asking yourself, like, should I, what do I need? Should I be doing this? And you can just ask yourself, like, I usually use a heavy over light. And so for me, light, the truth is light and it rises up, heavy stuff goes down. And, it's just something that if you practice it and practice it and practice it, pretty soon it becomes second nature, just like it would be, to feel something. And so like, if they handed us a Braille book, you and I, because, well, I don't know how to read Braille, but I have really sensitive fingers from doing acupuncture and massage. But to read Braille, we wouldn't know how to do it right away. We'd have to learn it. We'd have to practice it a lot. And so, or even for me to learn how to go play piano, I'd have to practice a lot. So the same thing with tapping into our intuition. We just have to keep practicing until it's second nature to us. I mean, Braille people or blind people who read Braille don't have to go like, I have to have like all this information. They just go and do it because they've taught themselves how to do it. I think we can do the same things with, we might read some differentiating information about a food. Or, maybe we have like really strong data on something that says this is completely safe. It's really good for the situation. But our body is telling us much different. We're feeling really sick. We're not sleeping. It's giving us a headache, whatever's happening. And then we want to doubt that that's, something we should be doing. I had a chiropractor one time tell me I shouldn't do a gallbladder flush because I wasn't ready for it. And so I got that in my head so much that I was terrified to do one for the longest time. So I was like really holding myself back from doing something that was healthy that I really knew deep inside when I got with my truth that it was right for me. But my chiropractor that I was seeing at the time had me so worried that my gallbladder was going to explode and I could die on the spot if I did it. So I think we have a tendency to get into other people's opinions instead of listening to what's true for us. So, as far as, liver and kidney clearance and stuff like that, it does really depend. But I would, for me, if it were for me and I was in a dire situation, I would go with the risk and then watch to see what happened. Because 1 time, 2 times, 3 times doing it for a week is probably not going to send you down a downward spiral as long as you're paying attention. So let's say you had a major liver issue where, you were even jaundice, turning yellow, your eyes were yellow, like bad, pancreatic cancer or biliary cancer, like some really bad stuff going on. And, those are some really hard to treat and turn around diseases. They're very difficult for an allopathic doctor, for a naturopath, whatever, for a health coach. It's hard. It takes a lot. So I would start using a small amount, see how that goes. Did I feel better? Did I not feel better? Did I feel awful? Did my eyes turn even darker yellow? Like what happened? Did I get pain? Like what happened? And then I would, feel it out and work with a qualified practitioner who is intuitive, knows what they're doing. They're willing to work with you on it. They're not just going to do that, oh no, poo-poo it right out the gate. They're going to say, let's explore this. As long as you understand, what the risks, what the benefits are, what could happen if this goes bad for you, are you willing to, go for this just in the hopes that it could, stop this from progressing or turn it around. That's how I would approach it with people. Just having those conversations, I think, is really important, because it gives you clarity.
Okay. I want to make sure we get to dilution for topical use and bad math. Can we go there next?
Yeah, this is something I kind of stumbled on because I have a fairly large group on Facebook that's just an open group that's compliant. So we really try not to talk about any real controversial stuff. We definitely don't talk about health issues there because, I kind of dance around things sometimes and say, this will support a healthy blood sugar or whatever. It's kept very vague. So in that group, my husband calls me the oil Nazi. So he's like, no soup for you. So I kick people out of there when they get nasty. So if anybody shows any claws, I don't even warn people anymore. I just remove them. So one day we had this crazy aromatherapy, like troll thing, it was just like hundreds or something like that. They were all just like going nuts. I almost felt like they all gathered together and were like, hey, let's see if we can, I think probably one person just came in and made some comments and then screenshot it and showed all their friends and was like, let's get this lady because, what does she know anyway? She's not an aromatherapist. So anyway, people were all coming in the group, saying this isn't safe. Somebody's going to die. You're going to kill your cats. You're going to kill your kids. And I was just like, oh my God, like this has to go. So after I shut all that down, I kind of like took a couple days to breathe and just go, it's not even mine. Like, it's not my stuff, like whatever. And then I came back like a little bit more able to respond. And I did a video after I had done some research on those dilution charts. And I looked at the charts and I was like, wait a second, this doesn't even add up because it's like saying a 30, the little gradient on usually they'll show like a roller bottle or something like that. And it'll have like colors gradiated through the bottle. And then it'll say like, 3%, 5. And then it'll off to the side, it'll be, this is for, under 1 year of age. Or if you're really hardcore, don't ever use essential oils until they're 2, because it could probably damage them forever. And then, like I've seen that so often. I'm like, wow, whoever came with that. So anyway, I started like looking at it. So I looked at it from just a mathematics standpoint. So what I did was I'm like, okay, we know that a 5 milliliter bottle has about 85 to 87 drops. It just sort of depends on, hey, is it vetiver oil, which is really thick, that's going to have a bigger drop? Or is it like a citrus oil that's thinner? It's going to have less viscosity. It's going to have a smaller drop. And then we're going to have like a 10, then math basically is going to tell us that a 10 milliliter roller bottle is going to have like what? I wrote it down, 170 drops, because that's 85 times 2. Pretty simple. I mean, this is like first and second grade math, guys. So then this is like, I just have to get so snarky about this because it cracks me up. And then I was like, okay, then, 258 drops for a 15 milliliter bottle, which is kind of like usually our standard bottle is a 15 ml, So if we were making up a blend and we were to do a 50% dilution, which in aromatherapy world, like especially the English aromatherapy world, and French aromatherapy is a little different. Oh my gosh, somebody's gonna die or get maimed or wet their pants or something really bad is gonna happen. Like this guy is going to fall basically if you use a 50% dilution. I mean, neat oils, it's almost like a 50% dilution is worse than using neat oil. I don't know. In their book, they freak out. So I thought about that and I thought about, okay, when I use my roller bottle, how many applications are even in a roller bottle? A lot, at least 100, at least. I mean, unless you're covering your whole entire back, right? I mean, and then it's diluted too on top of that. So, it's going to take it a while to get into your body. And I started thinking about that. And I'm like, even at a 50% dilution, that means we're going to have, 85 drops of essential oil and 85 drops of carrier oil about, right? if we have 100 applications in that bottle, and that's like probably on the low side, because like think about it, when you just swipe it over your neck or your forehead or your heart or your wrist or whatever you're going to use, you probably have 200 uses. It's a lot. So you're getting way less than a drop, because there would be 85 drops but 100 uses.
Mm-hmm.
So that's even less than 100. I mean, so you're going to be getting less than a drop per dose. And I mean, I think most of us can agree here in this, where we're at right now, that a drop is not a lot of oil. It's not. So when people like look at it from that standpoint, they're like, wow. And then when you look at what my typical roller bottle I make is, usually I use about 30. That's just because when I make blends, I'm like, okay, what do I want this blend to do? What am I going to use? And I start thinking about what I want to put in. And I'm like, okay, I just sort of know, I'm just connected to the nature of the oil. So it's like, I think of how, and this isn't to be super cool, but I think it is cool. But it's like, I guess, when Beethoven and people like that wrote music, Beethoven, he just kind of saw it in his head. He couldn't hear, he was deaf. So I often write blends without even smelling them. But when I really want to get specific, I'll put in a couple drops of this, smell it, put in some more drops, smell it. Sometimes I turn the bottle over, put it on, smell it, and I keep playing with it till I get what I want. But most of the time now, I don't even smell them. A lot of my blends I make, I don't even smell. I just go like, I know what that oil does. Cause it's like people who bake, they know that, okay, well, if I substitute coconut sugar for granulated sugar, what do I need to do with that? Or if I'm making something gluten-free, I don't know how to do any of this stuff, by the way, but people just know, because they've done it so often, what the end result's going to be when you do it that way. So like, I would not make a blend with like more I'd like use a tiny bit of spikenard and a lot of citrus. Like, that's just what I would do. Or like, I'd use a little bit of vetiver and more, of the higher note oils that are going to flash off faster. So, it's like, again, it's all about your intuition. Those charts, basically somebody did the bad math. I guess maybe they weren't thinking or something. And then everybody copied it from what I could find. So I was like desperately trying to find, like, through Pinterest and like Google Images and everything. Like, I tried to pull up like every chart I could find to see if there was even anyone that was accurate. I could not find one. Even the ones, unfortunately, even the ones on Dr. Axe, doTERRA, all the people that should know their shit, it wasn't there. I was just like, how can this be possible? I was like, this is an atrocity. I was like, oh my gosh. And then I thought about, making my own chart, like being the first person to make their own correct chart. And I was like, but I don't believe in charts. I believe in just like going with what, you want to make. Cause why do you need to know how many drops and what the percentage is? Why wouldn't you just want to know what smells good to you and what works? Why do you need to know that number? I'm not shaming anybody who wants to know the number, because that's okay too. But for me, it wasn't aligned with me. So I just was like, yeah, whatever. I'm just going to say, don't believe those charts, because they're not true. So if anybody out there, I know you said you might want to do it. If anybody out there wants to calculate the math and do the correct math and make their chart, you get to be a rock star. Because right now, as far as I know, I did that video like about a year ago, I think. I don't think there's still been a chart made. I haven't seen one yet that's correct.
Yeah. So now you guys listening, now there's about 170 drops in a roller ball. So now you can look at the math for yourself, because I think that's the thing. Unless you know how many drops in a roller ball, then you don't know how to even do the math or check the math. Mm-hmm. So now you all know, and you can check the math. And I mean, typically I tell people, start with maybe 20 drops, because I believe in low and slow. And you can always add more. Start low, make sure it doesn't irritate you. Add more if you want more result. But you don't need to start with 80 drops. There's Pinterest ones that say put in 80 drops. You don't need to start there. You don't need to go from 0 to 100 like that.
You can
just
always
start slow and stay in tune and stay mindful and add or subtract and play with it, experiment, because what works for me is not going to work for you, and vice versa.
Yeah, totally. And I was really the kids blends that are, on the more diluted side, the new doTERRA kids blends, those work really amazing. Like the one that has xylosanthem in it. It's like I think it's the soother, or calmer. I can't remember. It's the blue one. It's kind of like the kids version of Deep Blue.
Rescuer.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that is amazing. And
they
if
smell
I have
amazing.
Any kind of
I know. I use them.
It's like, poof, it's gone. But the smell is so light, which is typically not what I go for, because I love to really smell it. I mean, I so much enjoy the smell. It just makes me feel so happy and uplifted and everything when I smell those smells. So that's why I go for a stronger amount, because I also want to smell it. It's not really that, do I need that stronger amount to get the effect? So, that's the thing, is when you're making up the roller bottles, leave some headspace in the top so that, if you find out that you need to add more drops, there is space to do that. Or you can just dump some out into another bottle and add some more drops if you want to do that too. I mean, there's always ways to fix a recipe if you go over or under, either way.
I'm gonna switch gears since we're creeping up to 1:00. Can we talk?
Okay.
I know obviously we're both doTERRA users. People listening, are probably doTERRA users, but may not be. And obviously there can be huge differences in quality between something you're picking up from TJ Maxx or Amazon or even Whole Foods.
Yep.
Can you speak to why doTERRA for you?
Well, in the beginning, I didn't understand all the science behind it. I didn't really even know about all the testing and the sourcing, and that's what's important to me now. But in the very beginning, I just knew that what I was doing was not working. And I would make up a blend that was supposed to help back pain or headaches or sinuses or whatever, and I would make it up, and it really didn't work that well. And so I started thinking, okay, what is this? Are like essential oils witchcraft or something? Do you have to cast a spell to make them work? Is it something like you have to have some kind of a voodoo thing? Like I really did think that for a while. And I had all these books and it's like saying, oh yeah, this works. And I was like, but it's not working. People weren't getting results. I was using it in the clinic on people. It was not doing anything. Some people would say, oh yeah, I think I feel a little better or whatever. But when I started using doTERRA, I was completely against it. I was like, oh no, I will never use another network marketing brand because it can possibly be any better than all the rest. I mean, you own a clinic. Imagine all the people that are coming in from Plexus and, all these different companies and ASEA and, every health thing out there. Oh, can we talk to Dr. Markham? Because I think she should carry this in her clinic. I think she should recommend this to her patients. And so I would always hide. I would never like sit out in my lobby. I would tell my assistant or my massage therapist, like, okay, yeah, if anybody comes in here, I'm not here. Never here. I am never, never, never here. So like, just tell people I'm not here and you can take their name and I'll decide if I want to talk to them. doTERRA people would actually come into my office wanting to, talk to me about it. And I was like, no, absolutely not. No way. I actually decided I hated doTERRA without ever even trying it. So one time, I knew that I was on the look for a pure, real brand. And in my head, it was like something that was made in upstate New York, grown in somebody's backyard. That's what I had in my head. I'm like, somebody's like, they've got this little patch of lavender flowers and then they're going to come inside and it's probably going to be really expensive because they're hand making every batch and, whatever. So this is, again, not understanding all the testing that goes into it and the fact that it has to be grown in a proper environment and so on and so forth. So anyway, when my business coach, actually, I knew he was using essential oils and he lived in New York. So I'm thinking like, oh, he must be using that upstate New York brand that I had dreamed about. So I asked him and he was like, well, actually, I'm glad you asked because I'm using doTERRA essential oils. I was like, oh no. And he was like, do you trust me? And I was like, oh, that's such a loaded question. So I actually signed up without even using them. And it was without even having a sample or trying them. I was like, fine, I trust you. I believe you. I'm just going to try it. And when I got them, I really liked the smell, but I really didn't know what to do with them either. I was, because, nothing had ever worked. So I really wasn't educated on, so it took me a while. And I remember the first time I had an oil experience, it was with past tense. I used to get migraines all the time. Gallbladder and liver, folks, migraines. So I knew when I would get a migraine that basically if it went past the point, there was nothing I could do about it. And I would have to lay like in a cold, dark room for a couple of days and just wait for it to be over. So I started to get a headache during some classes that my upline had come to my clinic to teach from. He came from Arizona for a couple of days to teach classes. And in the first class, the overhead lights, I have a non-specified seizure disorder. So like those lights, if they flicker at all. So we had never had the lights on in the clinic ever, overhead. We just used the windows and stuff. And so we were teaching classes at night. We had to have the lights on. And I started to get a headache and I was like, oh boy. And so I just said, hey, what was that one you said helps with headaches? And he passed it around. And of course, the old roller bottles, you know how they used to drip really bad? It was, I put in way too much, but it was crazy because in like, I think less than 3 minutes, I just jumped out of my seat. I was like, oh my God, my headache's gone. And everybody was like, looked at me like, whoa. I'm like, no, you guys, this is amazing. So after that, I was just like, wow, because anything I had tried from other companies prior to, it never had that effect on me. So at that point, I started to understand, why is this company different? And so, you know, it's about the levels of testing that they do. They're not just looking at, you know, a GCMS report, which that can be so faked. And that's the one where we see the little peaks for the people who don't know. I know, you know, but, you know, the peaks of what chemicals are actually in here. Dr. Pappas was a really big pioneer on educating people back in the day about, you know, how this stuff can be counterfeited. And I can't remember the company that they had at convention this year that is now doing the, you know, the fingerprinting of the essential oils. No other company is doing this stuff. You know why? Because it's extremely expensive. And the companies that do some of this are not doing it on every single batch. And that's why we have these like breakthroughs where these really big companies are having a bad batch of something. And then the customer is getting it tested and finding out, oh, guess what? They had synthetic whatever in that. It was synthetic limonene. It was synthetic Cavricol, whatever it was. Or it had some other thing in it that should have never been in that plant. So then you know that it's been adulterated. And so, you know, it's just like anything. You want to know that what you're using has what's on the label. You want to know that what is in it. And so, you know, doTERRA has the source to you with the source to you website, the numbers on the bottom. Every single batch has its own GCMS report. And then it's had all the other testing too, but they put the GCMS up there so that you can know what is the chemical components of that specific bottle. So, you know, in every bottle of lavender oil, there may be little differences because it's going to depend on the year, you know, because I have bottles from like the last 5 years or the last, 4 years that I've been with doTERRA. So basically every bottle that I have is going to have a different batch number, and then it's going to have a little bit different structure. Very small, but it's going to be a little different. So then we're going to be able to go like, oh, how much linalool was in that one compared to this bottle? Or is it to where it should be, you know, and it's there. And if it doesn't come out chemically correct, they throw it out, which means then we have to wait to get some, which kind of sucks for us. But would you rather have it be pitched and not sold?
Well, they just don't buy it and somebody else buys it, right?
Exactly. Well, that's the other thing too, is they destroy it. They don't turn around and sell it to somebody else. And that's the amazing thing about doTERRA. They're more willing to not compromise their financial state. And they're just going to say, we're going to pitch this. They destroy it instead of selling it to another company and go, oh, well, at least we can make some money back on this. Yeah, if it doesn't meet the standards or if there's anything wrong with it, they get rid of it. So there was a couple years ago where Melissa and Roman chamomile had an issue from the supplier, whatever, the chemistry didn't come out right. It was a bad growing season for the Melissa. I remember that. I don't remember what the chamomile issue was. So basically they were like, okay, guys, it's going to be like another year or so, you know, until we can get that back. And I think that there is another company that's the Premier Research Labs that I work with nutraceuticals. You know, we can't get some things right now. We can't get aloe juice. I would so much rather that aloe juice didn't get sent to my patients and they, you know, destroyed it, then they just said, oh yeah, you know, it's just kind of off a little bit, and then we're going to sell them like kind of a half whatever product. So, you know, of course everybody's upset that they can't get their product, but you know what, I want this stuff to heal people. I don't want it to make them sicker, and I don't want them to not get results. I'd rather just see them not use, we find something else to do the job instead.
I know. I said the same thing to people. If you're intent on getting your essential oil from Marshall's or Walmart or whatever, I would just rather you don't use them.
Yep. Me too.
Because when this is for, you know, for healing, you know, physical, emotional, spiritual healing, therapeutic, whatever, you don't mess around with that. And once you do the math, it's pennies per drop anyway.
It is, totally.
And the amount of money that we've saved in our family from all the times we did not have to go see a doctor because we were able to, you know, remedy it at home and not buy a prescription drug. And it saves us money anyway. But It's just truly different. And, you know, some people say, oh, well, you just say that because you're with doTERRA. I'm like, no, I'm with doTERRA because I say that.
Exactly. That's totally true. It's absolutely true. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we're over an hour, and I know we could talk probably for an entire day. Maybe someday you'll have a conference and we'll all come to.
Ooh, yeah.
But thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. If people want to connect more with you, what's the best way for them to do that? Maybe I know you have a couple groups. What's the
I
best
have
way?
2 open groups on Facebook. That the one is Essential Oils, Tips, and Recipes, and that one has 16,000 people in it. So there's a couple Essential Oils, Tips, and Recipes out there. It's the one with, at this time, 16,000 people in. It's the bigger group. Just come in and make sure you answer the questions, because we don't always let people in if they don't answer. Sometimes I do, but the other 2 admins, I know that they're real, like, if they don't answer, we're not going to let them in, because we want to know that we're not letting in a bunch of creepers. Like, all week long, I've seen people who just got a Facebook account yesterday or Thursday, and you can tell it's not even, it's a bot basically. And I'm like, we don't need those people in here, because I try to protect the members. The other group is smaller. It's called the Health Expert Show. And I haven't been real good about doing my weekly show, but usually I do a weekly show where I do what you're doing right now, is I invite somebody to come on, or I may sometimes just talk myself, but we just talk about a health topic and try to educate people on, you know, hey, what's the truth about it, debunking stuff. And then, you know, maybe even sometimes how is the truth for you? Because sometimes there's multiple truths to things, right? So we just try to give information. And I do a lot of, you know, written posts too, but lots of stuff like that. So those are the 2 groups that are open. I have some private groups too, but that's a great place to start, is just come in those groups and get a feel for if you like it, and go from there.
And I'll grab the links and put them in everybody's follow-up emails. So it's easy to find. And I'll link to the book, the Emotions book that Dr. Michelle talked about at the beginning. I'll give you a link to that as well in case you want to check it out. And this was just awesome. Thank you so, so much for your time. Really appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys. Thanks for being here.